Warning: this video contains major spoilers for Fazbear Frights Volume 6, Blackbird. I am back, everyone! I know it hasn't been that long since I actually made a video or did a stream, but it's felt like it because I've sort of been out of it for a while. Hello, by the way. Hello everyone, I'm Inkyink, you know, the typical intro. And today we are going to be revisiting my Fazbear Frights tier list sort of video. Because we got some new books that came out, and I have some changed opinions on some of the other stuff. So, please enjoy the video. If you do like the video, that would be pretty cool. It's spring break now. I'm going to try and get a lot more videos out than usual. And with that all said, enjoy the video. Alright, so, welcome to the video, as I said before. With the release of Blackbird in December and The Cliffs earlier this month, in March, there have been, well, 6 new stories. And obviously I have The Cliffs right here. I finished it just a few days ago, and I definitely have some interesting thoughts on it. Now, unfortunately, this tier list that you see before you has not been updated with The Cliffs, even though it's been a little bit, so pick up the slack, tier list person. I don't know, I would make one myself, but I can't get all these images. So, we've got Blackbird to rank. Now, before we get started with Blackbird, I am gonna actually make a few changes to my list. Shocking. I know, opinions change? What? So, the simplest change is that I'm going to be removing all of the Stitch Wraith stories from this list. I thought about it for a while, and I just think they kind of interrupt the flow of the list, and I want to rank them when the story's complete, because it doesn't quite seem like it would be normal to judge them in the little tiny segments we get at the end of each book. But anyways, here's the standard list that we sort of made in the last 2 videos, with Coming Home and The Man in Room 1280 at the top, Fetch, New Kid, Count the Ways to Be Beautiful, Bunny Call, Room for One More, Step Closer, Into the Pit, 1:35 a.m., Lonely Freddy, Out of Stock, In the Flesh, and Dance With Me, as they follow, respectively, you know? But I have, you know, changed my mind about a few things. Some things will probably be controversial. For the first part, let's start with the C tier. What's gonna change in the C tier? Dance With Me is staying in D tier. It's boring. In the Flesh is going to move up, despite the weird ending, which I do not endorse the weird ending. There are a lot of things I do like about the story. The protagonist is very fun to hate. He's a jerk, and it's on purpose, and that is a cool premise. So where would I put it? It's gonna be B tier. B tier is gonna have a lot of changes though, so I think In the Flesh is gonna be middle of B tier. 1:35 a.m. Is it a low B or is it a high C? I think it's gonna stay a low B. Into the Pit, also gonna stay where it is. Step Closer, moving down. Alright, I'm sorry if I've offended a bunch of Foxy fans out there, but this story just didn't do it for me. It was very drawn out. There was Foxy, he did show up, he did do a curse or whatever, but something about the book, the story just didn't vibe with me. I found it boring. The ending was alright, I just don't have fond memories of it. And I don't exactly know why, but it's gonna go to the top of C tier. To Be Beautiful is gonna move up from Count the Ways. It's a minor change, they're both sort of staying where they are, but I'm just swatching them. New Kid's definitely moving down. I think New Kid is probably gonna go down to, actually, honestly, middle of B tier. That's probably the most drastic change. While it was alright, and I liked some things about it, it was very confusing, which it can be a good thing, but not in this case. And while the Springlock scene was really cool, it just doesn't carry the story for me. And the rest of A tier and S tier are going to stay the same. So now with all of those changes out of the way, I think it's time to get into the new territory with Blackbird and the Cliffs. What better place to start than the title, Blackbird itself? The story about Noel and Sam. And they're like college students. Noel is a former bully, and Sam is a former bullied person. And they're working on a short film, horror film together for a class. and they think up this monster, this Blackbird monster. And before we go forward, I just want to comment how Blackbird, as a character, design-wise, is probably one of the scariest things FNAF has had recently. Definitely much better than the Glamrocks. Glamrocks, not scary. Blackbird, scary. So they make this whole premise of the Blackbird will, what do they say? The Blackbird will make you talk or something like that, make you confess. Basically, Blackbird's gonna hunt you down and make you tell your worst secrets, and it's gonna punish you for that. So they're all like, oh, that's a spooky premise, and it's all creepy looking, and they based it off of the animatronics at Freddy's, so there's a little bit of a tie-in there. That's kind of the only tie-in, which sometimes I have a problem with, as you'll see later, but I think it works here for Blackbird pretty well. So, things progress, the Blackbird costume is made, Noel and Sam get in a fight because Noel hasn't really let go of all his bullying ways, because he was like, it was still funny, I mean, I was kind of a jerk, but it was still funny, and Sam's like, no, and he gets hit by a train. What? Yeah, a bit abrupt, I'm talking fast, I'm on the energy today. A bit abrupt. I'm in a good mood. So yes, Sam actually gets hit by a train and goes missing. Now, I'll come back to this later, but for all intents and purposes, in the story right now, Sam is out of the picture, and Noel is like, crap, did I have something to do with that? Is this my fault? What do we do? And then he starts seeing Blackbird. From the start, he would see it in the corner of his eyes. He was, what the heck was that? I see some feathers? What? And it's following him around, and he's talking to this girl he likes, and their chemistry is pretty nice. It's a nice subplot, nothing major, but basically Noel begins a descent into insanity over his guilt, and the Blackbird is coming to get him for it. And no matter where he goes, no matter what he tries to do to shake off Blackbird, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't happen until it sort of culminates, and he's in his dorm room. He's looking around with the flashlight. Pay attention to that. He's looking around with the flashlight, and he's trying to. He keeps like almost falling asleep, but then like getting woken up until he gets this horrifying experience where the Blackbird is on top of him, but like in a dream state, you know, like Hollow Knight style, and he's like compressing him and dragging him into the depths or whatever, and it was a crazy scene. And he gets rescued basically by someone else in the dorm who breaks down his door because it was like Noel was about to die. He was obviously Blackbird wasn't physically there on him, but it was like having an effect on him. He was screaming, he was making sounds that no human should be making, and he was about to die, but boom, he's saved. Now he's trying to go through what could be the cause of this strange curse that is happening to me. Oh boy, what if it is Bully? And so it's been a while since I read this, so my memory's a bit hazy, but he ends up trying to track down the girl that he bullied in middle school. And it was, you know, it was alright, that little subplot, and he eventually finds her. And she is like a completely different person. She's like no longer bullyable by that dumb standard that people have, apparently. And like she's in college, she's pretty successful, or on the track to be, and she completely forgives him. And it's a very nice moment. And he's all like in tears, and he's all sad, and he's guilty, but he's feeling the weight of the guilt go away. He's feeling it lift off his chest. And the Blackbird stops coming. Blackbird is gone. And that obviously symbolizes the guilt being, you know, free. He's no longer guilty. And Sam shows up again. This is a bit of a controversial point. Some people don't like it because of this. Sam survived getting hit by a train, and the only reason they couldn't find him was because he was just, I don't know, unconscious in a bush that was somehow more secret than the other bushes that they searched. It has a nice happy ending. Everything sort of goes back to normal, but they grew as people. I don't know about Sam. He got hit by a train. Maybe he shrunk, like maybe lost some of his arm. It was generally a good story. Now, some common criticisms, as I just said, are that Sam sort of inexplicably survived. Now, I think it would be a bit more creepy, because it's a creepy story, sure, but it's not really scary. I think it would have been
would have been a scarier story if Sam actually did die, and it was because of Noel, because he got hit by the train because he was all mad and stuff and wasn't paying attention. So that guilt, I would have rather Sam sort of become the Blackbird, and then still leave Noel alone once he's confessed and apologized to the girl he bullied. But I think having that extra touch of Blackbird actually being real and being like some kind of ghost of Sam would have been a nice touch. Now, where do we rank Blackbird? I really liked this story. It had some good characters, a good plot, not too much relevance to FNAF, which I do pay attention to, but I think the rest of the stuff carried it pretty well, and I think, in my humble opinion, it is going to be right between To Be Beautiful and Count the Ways, in the middle of A tier. And the logical progression would say we're going to the real Jake next, but I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna steer us over to Hide and Seek. Now, the third stories in each book usually serve as like the big ending. They're usually longer. They have some power to them, as you can see in Coming Home and The Man in Room 1280. Those were both the third stories of their books, and they were phenomenal. But Hide and Seek, long story short, It doesn't have that power. Hide and Seek is about protagonist. What was his name? I don't remember his name. That should tell you a little bit about, you know, where this is going. So, Beanie Boy. We'll call him that, because I remember he had a beanie. So he works at Freddy's, which is very relevant, obviously, because, you know, we are at a Freddy's location. That does boost a story up in the FNAF relevance. And he wants to beat some games, some arcade games, because his brother is all arrogant all the time, from his perspective, mind you, and is like, yeah, I win all the games, you scrub, you're not gonna do anything in your life. I'm the best. So Beanie Boy he's trying to reclaim some of that. He's trying to fight back. So a new game comes in called Hide and Seek, and it's got this black rabbit, and now obviously fans of FNAF are going, Shadow Bonnie. And I mean, I guess you would be right, because it is technically Shadow Bonnie, as we'll see later. But he tries to win that. He's not having it. He's not having a nice time. He keeps losing. There's a little bit of back and forth with home, and I think there's a bit of school life in there thrown in, but I don't remember any of it. He rages at the game, and he tries to rig it by crafting some wood, you know, all Minecraft-like. And he tries to block off the little areas that the rabbit can go, because it's obviously hide and seek, you're trying to find the rabbit. And when that still somehow doesn't work, because obviously this machine, this game, this setup is haunted by something, whether it be agony, whether it be a ghost, who knows, the rabbit evades capture. So he completely flips out, and he smashes it, he destroys it all in rage, and he leaves. He nopes the heck out of there, because he's not paying for that stuff. And so then he's a bit guilty, so he goes to bed. He has a nightmare. He has a horrible nightmare where he's on a table and something is being sewn to his back, like, you know, creepy style. Creepy style? What is that? And so when he wakes up, he looks at his shadow and he just goes, do you see the sun? Because I don't see the sun. Where's the shadow coming from? And then he notices, that's not my shadow. Hold on. Let's pause. Let's go back a few steps. What's going on here? And he looks, and it's a rabbit shadow. And as I was reading this, I was getting a little bit hyped, because this is a really clever way to use Shadow Bonnie, you know, as a shadow. So that kept me invested, how he was going to deal with this. And basically, he tries multiple things to get it off. Each one doesn't work. He meets with this girl who he talks to about it. For some reason, the nerd guy at Freddy's can see the Shadow Bonnie. It is never explained, because really only he can see it. It's all Death Note type. So he can see the shadow, no one else can, except for the nerd at Freddy's. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. Does it have lore significance? I don't know. It's a story. Let's just move on. So he sees it. Nerd sees it. And this girl doesn't, and he tries so many different things. And the girl actually saves him from drowning, because he tries to drown the shadow. Which was stupid. I mean, do you see lungs? I don't see lungs. I don't know how you're gonna try and get that off with water. And they become friends, and everything's, you know, not going well, obviously, because he's got the shadow, but things are starting to look up. And he's trying to get some strategies, and eventually, it's like, okay, I think, what if we, I forget exactly what he has to do. It has something to do with going back to the game, and cleaning it up or something, maybe confessing to the problems that he caused. But basically, he ends up going back there. Everything is going to work out fine. He's gonna put that thing back where it came from, or so help me, you know. And then we get the twist. Now, obviously, if every story had a happy ending, it would get stale. Things would not be very creepy. But this is an example, in my opinion, of a twist done wrong. Because right at the last, few paragraphs of the story, Beanie Boy goes, you know what? I'm not gonna let this rabbit win. I'm gonna try one last time to get it off by impaling myself. And he does, and he dies. And that's just how it ends. It's so abrupt, there's no build-up for it, it doesn't feel earned, it just feels like a little shock value. Oh, he died, no happy ending today, even though the book was sort of setting up for a resolution in that style. And earlier, he had even talked to his brother, and his brother was like, bro, I'm just messing around, I don't actually hate you or anything. So things were looking up, and it was going to be one of those, redemption-type stories. Obviously, redemption is not a very common thing in this series. For example, Lonely Freddy, he's about to redeem himself and then gets robbed. And it's a similar thing here, but not quite done well. Because, as I said, it's very abrupt. Out of nowhere, he just bonk onto, a spike, and he's dead. So that's hide and seek. Now, where would I place hide and seek? I'm tempted to say C tier, but I think it's better than 1:35 a.m. Maybe. Yeah, I think it's gonna be just above 1:35 a.m. Or no, maybe. I'm a bit conflicted because is it better than Into the Pit? That's a tough one. Is it better than The New Kid? I think so. I think it's gonna be like this. I think we're moving New Kid down farther. There we go. That seems about right. Hide and Seek is going to go the middle of B tier, well, low B tier, right behind Into the Pit and before The New Kid. Now we get into the real Jake. Before I get into the actual story, I'm just going to briefly touch upon the whole lore debate with this book about EvanVictim. Matt Pat covered it very well in his video, but basically in early February, there was a solution to the logbook grid. It was like, Evan is the bite victim. Evan is the crying child. Everything is epic. The logbook code is crap. But there is an interesting parallel, which is a word that I don't like to use often because people often take parallels in these books way too far. But there's a parallel to characters in the real Jake. Jake's dad is named Evan, and he has a brother named Michael that shares some alarming similarities to our boy Michael in the games. So I will admit that looks somewhat solid. It looks like there's something there. Is it enough to completely confirm EvanVictim? Absolutely not. It's a decent theory, but I don't think it's anywhere near confirmed, and I think most people have generally shared that sentiment by now. Anyways, let's get into the real Jake. Now, if you've been paying attention to the Fazbear Frights series, and specifically the Stitch Wraith stories, Jake is probably a name you're pretty familiar with. He is revealed to be one of two spirits, or actually three later on, inside the Stitch Wraith animatronic amalgam thing. And he's a nice kid. He's always trying to look out for Andrew. He's a great character. He's an innocent, pure child. I don't know where I'm going with this. If anything, a character flaw would be that he's too good, as in a little on the goody two shoes side of things. He seems a little too perfect, but he's Jake. We're gonna give him a pass. Now, this story is about how Jake ended up in the Stitch Wraith, and it is a sad story. It's not scary. It's not relevant to FNAF at all. It's relevant to the other Fazbear Fright stories, but not FNAF. And it is really just it's an emotional ride. It's a tragic tale of a kid who's dying from It's a tumor. I forget if it's cancerous or if it's something else. But he's dying. And he doesn't have much time left. And his dad is in the military, Evan, as mentioned before. He's got a caretaker named Margie, I think. And it's a rough one. It is a hard-hitting story. It starts off, obviously, with Margie and Jake. They're sort of going through day-to-day life, and Margie is starting to she's grown very attached to Jake as a caretaker, and she is not ready for when the time comes where he's not going to be there anymore. So it's a lot about her trying to come to grips with the mortality of Jake, but there's also the subplot of the real Jake, as the title implies. So it's a voice that comes from the cabinet every night when Jake goes to bed, and they have a little conversation about what the real Jake did today, or the imaginary Jake who doesn't have the problems and is out living life to the fullest. And Jake loves talking about the real Jake, you know, the one that he wish he could be. And there's the doll named Simon, I think, in the cupboard. And they have their conversations. It has a little bit of a long setup. If I had to fault the real Jake for one thing, the setup is a bit long, but it's got some good payoff. Now, it's revealed that Simon is actually a plush recreation of sort of Jake with a little walkie-talkie with messages from his dad in the military, and he comes on the phone every night and talks to his son without Jake ever knowing that it's his dad. And he plans to, so when there's the whole thing where it's like, come open the cupboard when you're feeling better, when you're all recovered and we can finally meet. And the whole thing with that is that inside the cupboard is the doll, and it's dressed up to reflect the adventures that the real Jake has been doing. So there's a lot of human emotion put into that, which is going to be important, obviously, as you know, in these books. And there's some shenanigans that unfold. Jake really wants to go do stuff, but he's very weak, and it's just a rough time. Then the bombshell drops. Crap, oh my gosh, sorry, forgive me for that analogy. Evan, Jake's dad, in the military, is killed by a bomb. And the scene with the call from the military to Margie, that's a scene. That is, it is probably one of the most heartbreaking scenes I have ever read. And she's not gonna tell Jake. Well, she is, but she's not anywhere near ready for that. And she doesn't think he's ready for that yet. So there's just this dread. There's this moment, this tension, this silence, the calm before the storm, you could say. It goes like that, and they're eventually gonna have to take Jake to the hospital, because things aren't getting better. And they bring some people in, and she's gonna tell him that he's gonna have to go, and that she's gonna try and come with him, and that his dad's dead. But it doesn't make it. It doesn't make it to that, because the medical personnel come in. They all go in. 5 total people, which some people have read way too far into, and Jake is gone. He has left. But he's still there, because what everyone failed to see at the end of the story, and this is a nice ending, nice intrigue, is that the cupboard has opened, and the doll is gone. So the real Jake, what a story. It is very, very good. Very good. It is completely carried by its characters, its relevance to the Stitchwraith stories, and just the emotion, the plot. As I said, it has a little bit of a pacing issue towards the beginning, but it is such a good story. Now, is it S tier? That is the question. It is absolutely above B. It's above it's above these few. Is it above Fetch? I think so. Is it top of A tier or bottom of S tier? Now that is the question. And I think it's going to go bottom of S tier. And there we go. That's Blackbird. That's Blackbird out of the way. And unfortunately, that's where we're gonna have to leave the tier list side of things. We'll talk about cliffs soon in part 2. So if you did enjoy this review and ranking of Blackbird, please like the video, comment what you thought of my controversial, probably, opinions, and what your opinions on these stories are. Share with some friends, turn on notifications, it really helps me out. I'm trying to get some new effort, some new motivation, some new energy into these videos over the next week or so. And with that all said, thank you all for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys in part 2 of this video, probably when it gets updated with the cliffs on here. And if not, it'll be soon. Bye!